war in August 2008 between Russia and Georgia. At the time, the Western world blamed Moscow as Russian armour rolled into Georgia.
The United States and our allies stand with the people of Georgia. Russia has damaged its credibility and its relations with the nations of the free world.
But now accusations are surfacing that Georgia may not be entirely blameless. Members of the Georgian government have broken rank and criticised the Tkeshelashvili administration. And the man who was a senior official for the Organisation for Security and Cooperation in Europe, a regional organisation that was monitoring the situation in South Ossetia, sees Georgia as the main instigator.
The underlying causes, there are many of them, obviously, and the Russians and the Georgians are both to blame, I think, for some of that. But primarily, I think it was the reckless actions of the Georgian president, probably and the Georgian Minister of Interior, on the night of the 7th of August. Once the Georgians started attacking that town in the way that they did, which was basically the indiscriminate shelling of the town, once that began to happen, really the rest was a foregone conclusion. A lot is said about a Russian trap. I don't see it as a trap at all. It was a foregone conclusion. Once you put Russian peacekeepers at risk in the way that the Georgian forces did, then it was clearly no country, including a permanent member of the Security Council, is going to see its troops basically have their nose ground into the dirt and put at risk in that way.
There's no information as of OSCE information that has ever been new in that sense that would implicate somehow Georgia in starting the war, because of the fact that they're in the basement at the time when they write their report from Tkeshelashvili on the 7th. They can't confirm what is happening to the north, how much shelling of the Georgian villages are ongoing because they're in the basement at that time. They could not confirm how many Russian tanks were already there in the territory, how many Russian soldiers were invading the territory.
I was in South Ossetia with the British ambassador, in fact, just a week prior to the fighting. I was in South Ossetia just a few days prior to the fighting. I was back in South Ossetia. I was probably the first international to reach South Ossetia after the place had actually been bombarded. I'd also worked there for the last 2.5 years dealing with local Ossetian and Georgian people on the ground in the area. So I knew the area pretty well, I would suggest. And also it was my decision to leave 3 OSCE mission members in the town during the intense period of the fighting, and I was in contact with them throughout.
Both sides have been accused of war crimes during the 9 days of fighting. The accusations against Georgia include the deliberate targeting of the civilian population as they tried to escape the battlefield. The British Foreign Secretary David Miliband describes Georgia's actions as reckless, and US officials are taking the accusations very seriously. But the Georgian government does not agree with this assessment.
It's Russia who invaded Georgia. It's Russia who occupies parts of Georgia. It's Russia who ethnically cleansed, as simple as that and grievous as that, the whole territory of South Ossetia, and beyond that, the villages outside of the administrative borders as well. It's very simple. I mean, there were villages with which thousands of Georgians were living. There are none of Georgians who are left.
Whether an accurate picture ever emerges of what happened on the ground in Georgia last summer, it is clear that the civilians bore the brunt of the conflict. Simon Dedman, NBC News.